typical mall food court, filled with people totally unaware of what they are truly eating, oblivious to where their food actually came from, unaware of what is really in their food. The way food has been brought to the consumers has drastically changed in the last 30 years.
In our society, food safety has become a major issue.
In the past few years, foodborne illnesses have become more and more common.
In the US, and E. coli threats continue in Europe. As of
one person is now dead and 76 have fallen ill due to a nationwide salmonella outbreak.
8 children in northern France between 18 months and 8 years of age were found to be seriously ill from E. coli infection.
5 more deaths are blamed on the listeria outbreak involving tainted cantaloupe.
1,000 babies are sick and more than 150 are suffering from acute kidney failure.
There once was a time when food production was simple. In the past, things were made from scratch, and people had a good relationship with their local butcher. Back in the 1930s, livestock were fed well and kept in great condition. These healthy and widespread living areas for livestock kept disease among livestock to a minimal and helped prevent people from getting foodborne illnesses such as E. coli. Nowadays, meat is processed in factories such as this. Take, for example, one of the largest meat packing companies in the world, Tyson. They entirely changed the way chickens are raised.
Birds are now raised and slaughtered in half the time they were 50 years ago, but now they're twice as big. People like to eat white meat, so they redesigned the chicken to have large breasts.
Today, livestock such as this live under terrible, crammed, and tight conditions. These livestock were given genetically modified food in order for a faster, quicker, and cheaper production.
Their bones and their internal organs can't keep up with the rapid growth. A lot of these chickens here, they can take a few steps and then they plop down. It's because they can't keep up with all the weight that they're carrying.
The average customer is really wanting to know where their food comes from. There was a period of time where people just thought all their food came from the supermarket and never really wondered what happened behind that.
In this day and age, people have busy lives and are usually on the go. People use quick drive-through places such as McDonald's as a replacement for a nice, nutritious meal. Companies have realized that the less quality and effort they put into making food, the higher of a profit they would make. They can do this using recent technology, whereas in the past, this technology did not exist. Why has the food production process changed so much in the last few decades? Consider this chart created in 2010 by the Institute of Food Technologies. For millions of years, the world's population could be fed by local farmers and basic agricultural methods. However, in the last 100 years, the world's population has exploded from 2 billion people to over 7 billion people, requiring companies to invent new methods to produce more food in less time at less cost to the consumer. In the last 100 years, traditional farming and agricultural methods have now been replaced by a new technology known as industrial agriculture. Consider a basic food we all eat, like eggs.
A lot of people don't realize in modern agriculture how animals are treated now, and when they find out, they don't like it. It's absolutely astounding. You won't believe this, but they're actually building caged chicken houses now, doing commercial eggs that you would buy in a regular supermarket, not Whole Foods, with 650,000 chickens in a single barn. Stack systems that are 12 decks high, so 650,000 chickens, all one age. It's common that an egg farm today will have at least 1 million hens on it. The largest single egg farm that I know of has 15 million hens in one place. So industrial agriculture, it's absolutely amazing what has happened in the last 50 or 60 years.
I think with proper education that the government can help assist, that our foods are being labeled properly.
It's an individual's responsibility in the end, okay? The government just puts out a bunch of regulations. Americans have the right of choice, and they need to be informed.
In 2007, Barack Obama promised to do more to protect our food supply.
I'll immediately implement country of origin labeling because Americans should know where their food comes from. We'll let folks know whether their food has been genetically modified because Americans should know what they're buying.
On November 16, 2010, the Senate passed the Food Safety Modernization Act and was passed as a law on January 4, 2011 by Barack Obama. The Food Safety Modernization Act has helped prevent the FDA from waiting for a foodborne illness to occur and then trying to prevent it. Instead, this act has made it the FDA's job to prevent foodborne illnesses before it happens by having them do a more thorough job when checking food production facilities. Unfortunately, this legislation has failed to address the labeling of genetically modified foods. In order to feed our rapidly growing population, food producers have adopted new production methods where the long-term impacts are largely unknown. One instance of this is ConAgra's turkey pot pie. In 2007, 15,000 people were sickened with the salmonella from these turkey pot pies. Federal food safety inspectors examined the different aspects of the pot pies and were not able to locate the source of the illness, and neither could the manufacturer ConAgra. ConAgra sold more than 100 million pot pies in 2007 under its Banquet brand. Rather than killing any bacteria themselves, they decided to hold the consumer accountable for killing any bacteria in the turkey pot pie. The instructions and 4-step diagram on the back of these very inexpensive pies have now been adjusted to say internal temperature needs to reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit as measured by a food thermometer in several spots. More and more corporations that supply Americans with processed foods are incapable to assure the safety of their ingredients. The food supply chain for ingredients in processed foods is becoming more complex and global as the drive to keep food costs down intensifies. As a result, almost every element, not just meat, is now a potential carrier of harmful diseases. Government and industry officials now realize this is a real problem. Consumers now realize that the only way to protect their food supply is to radically change the way they find, purchase, and consume their food. So, people have begun to make the transition from places such as McDonald's to places they trust more, where they can actually meet the people who made their food, such as a farmer's market. In Whole Foods, there are signs everywhere that show the product they are selling is locally grown. There are also signs that show where exactly the product is from, such as the celery that was made in California, or organic Honeycrisp apples from Washington.
When we communicate with a customer from where their food comes, we find that they take greater interest in that product, they take greater interest in the producer of that product.
Also, at Vermont Farmstead Cheese Company, they have been labeling their cheeses with barcodes that has allowed the consumer to see the actual cow that produced the milk for the cheese the consumer purchased.
It's not like it's trying to give people a sense that, you know, this is the farmer, this is the cow that made the product for you. And that's a level of trust that we try and bring back to the consumer.
Major grassroots campaigns, such as the Just Label It campaign, have been pushing for changes in food safety and transparency. The Just Label It campaign, created by Gary Hirschberg, CEO of Stonyfield Yogurt, was created in order to force the government to make it a requirement for food manufacturers to label foods as genetically modified. According to the Just Label It campaign, 93% of Americans think genetically engineered foods should be labeled.
From a food safety standpoint, I think customers are wanting to know where their food comes from. There is that drive, there is that movement to find out what comes in, what is in their foods, what ingredients.
The future of our food supply depends on safety, trust, transparency, quality, and comfort in knowing the source of our food.